This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, refugees, immigration, and the agenda to erase America. What a pleasure and an honor to have with us this evening investigative reporter and author of The Red-Green Axis, Jim Simpson. Jim, welcome to the Glazov Gang.
Hey, Jamie. Great. Thanks for asking me on.
And thank you for coming on, and thank you for writing this book and everything that you do. Look, let's just begin in general here. What inspired you to write The Red-Green Axis?
Well, I've been writing about a lot of different issues, and my forte is to dive deep into those issues, whether it's vote fraud, whether it's the Cloward-Piven strategy. I have a book that I'm working on that basically hacks the left from top to bottom. I was asked to write a book about refugee resettlement and to do that deep dive, to find out who the funders are, what the real agenda is, who are the people behind it, what are their intentions. And so I went at it, and the Red-Green Axis is what resulted. And I've basically been following that issue ever since then. That was published in June of 2015. I've traveled the country. I've talked with legislators. I've talked with mayors. I've talked with governors. I've talked with activists and everyday citizens about how the refugee program impacts their lives personally in their communities all over the country. Last year, I did 38 presentations in 19 different states talking about this issue, and I became intimately involved with that issue in different areas because it is overwhelming small communities in many places, and it's a story that never reaches the national level. People just aren't aware unless you're actually in one of those communities, and then it's very up close and personal.
Thank you, Jim. Well, look, before we get into some of the details here, let's just deal with some common sense issues. I'll just paint a brief common sense picture for us. A couple people sitting around a table making policy. They love America. They love freedom. They love this country. And they say, you know, I think we should start to bring in tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people from cultures and from a religion where people hate non-Muslims. They believe in wife beating because the Quran says that it's okay. They believe in Sharia law. They don't like minorities. They believe in Islamic supremacism. They want to replace the Constitution of the United States with Sharia law. Let's just start bringing tens of thousands of them to this territory. And then everybody would laugh a little bit because you would never want to do that. So obviously this all makes sense because the left is behind this, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. 100%. The left, you may have heard this slogan, the issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. And you can pick any issue, whether it's gay rights, whether it's civil rights, whether it's war protesting, whether it's refugee resettlement or illegal immigration. They could care less about any of those issues unless and except it can be utilized as a way to allow them to insinuate themselves into power. That's the purpose of all of the left's agendas. And refugee resettlement is a perfect vehicle for them to accomplish their goals.
Okay, Bill, roughly, what is the size of this refugee resettlement program?
Well, that's another widely misunderstood issue. The refugee program, there's a refugee resettlement program that is handled through the State Department, where refugees in UN refugee camps and other places apply for refugee status, and they're processed through the refugee program, and then they're brought to the United States. Those people are called refugees, but the refugee program itself is actually much bigger than that, because it deals with any and all persons who are defined as having a credible fear of returning to their home country due to fear of persecution on the basis of race, sex, political orientation, or whatever. And so, as you might imagine, the category is much larger, and it includes not only refugees, but asylum seekers. It includes a special category called special immigrant visas. That's for Iraq and Afghan people who helped us during the war. There is the Cuban Haitian Entrant Program. There's the trafficking, victims of trafficking program, and there's the unaccompanied alien children program. When you put it all together, it's over 200,000 people a year at present levels.
Right. And Jim, I mean, we look at the London Bridge massacre, we look at Manchester, we look what's been going on in the UK, we know about San Bernardino, Boston Marathon massacre. The individuals involved here are coming from Sharia, environments. So, and it only takes a few people to kill and hurt a lot of people. So look, we can talk about the problem of terrorism. This is a given, and ISIS has already boasted that it's infiltrated these refugees with their terrorists. But let's talk about some other problems with the program, because of course we can talk about terrorism, but even the cost of the program itself, of welfare. I mean, I can imagine that this is a lot of taxpayers' money.
Well, it's a huge amount. And before we started this, I was looking at some of those statistics, and refugees, for example, use welfare at rates radically out of proportion to American citizens. And those numbers, for anybody that doubts it, are recorded in an annual program that the Office of Refugee Resettlement, the Health and Human Services Department, provides to Congress. And it characterizes, it does a survey of refugees and finds out how many of them are on different kinds of welfare. So, for example, in 2015, 40% of refugees were taking temporary assistance for needy families. That's the main cash welfare program. 17.7% were on supplemental security income. 25% were on something called refugee cash assistance, which is specific to refugees only. 67.7% were on Medicaid. 92.5% were on food stamps. These are the and it stays like this for years on end. So, for example, over a 5-year period, and you got to remember, temporary assistance for needy families only lasts 5 years. So over a 5-year period, 18% are still using that. 22% are using supplemental security income. Now, think carefully about that, because supplemental security income is supposed to be specifically for elderly and disabled people. I don't think 22.6% of the refugees that came into the United States between 2011 and 2015 are in either one of those categories. So there's got to be some fraud going on there. There's they take general assistance. That's from local governments. They take Medicaid and food stamps. After 5 years, 60% are still on food stamps. So it's off the charts. There's no comparable group of either immigrants or U.S. citizens that comes anywhere near their welfare use. And so I did a calculation, and this is not 100% accurate. This is an estimate, but that most recent group of individuals, if you take from 2009 to 2017 and apply those welfare rates, the cumulative cost of the group that has been here since 2009 to 2017 is $23.3 billion. And that's welfare costs.
Just very alarming and disturbing. Jim, we're running out of time. Please, very briefly, I want to just go over very quickly, so as brief answers as possible, because I want to touch on some things here. Once we understand the left, it begins to make such sense. Bring in aggressive, malicious populations who want to destroy American culture, who want to destroy the American way of life. So that makes sense. Even better, get Americans to pay for it, which bankrupts the country even more. Yep. And then obviously, these populations, when we make them American citizens, you think they're going to vote for Donald Trump? No. They're going to vote for a Bernie Sanders or for an Elizabeth Warren or for a Hillary Clinton, because they're going to be needy. They're going to need help. And, they're not going to vote for the quote-unquote racists. They're going to vote for the socialists that are going to give them everything. Jim, overall, this is basically about the left's destructive agenda and also the will to power, correct?
Absolutely correct. It's a crisis strategy. It's designed to create crisis. It is designed to break us into ever smaller warring fragments, and at the same time, deliver them more and more reliable, dependent votes to ultimately give them the permanent progressive majority that they've been seeking for years.
Right. Jim, I kind of thank God every day recently. I consider Donald Trump a providential godsend because, what Hillary was going to do to this country, I think it might have been over with. Yes. So Trump represents a lot of hope for us, a lot of good instincts, good things he's saying, but he's facing a lot of leftist resistance. Let's wrap it up here. What are your thoughts about the hope that Trump represents, and what does he need to do, and what do we need to do to help him do it?
Well, he's made a lot of promises on the campaign, and he has been impeded and prevented from following through on those promises to a large extent because of the rigged courts, because of the foot dragging on the part of Democrats and the sabotage on the part of Obama holdouts still in the government. What he needs to do is he needs people in place that are willing to push that agenda. He needs to take a bolder leadership role in bringing Congress along. There never should have been a budget passed for 2017 that excluded the border wall. On the other hand, he is doing a lot of things under a very, very trying situation. He has a dichotomy of beliefs within his own administration, and that dichotomy is at war with itself. So, for example, it was a major accomplishment for him to pull us out of Paris, because the establishment was lining up to open their pockets for that agreement. Everybody in all the other nations were lining up. We were saved, and he needs to do the same kind of thing. He needs to have somebody in the State Department that understands what refugee resettlement really is. I don't think he has given it the priority it needs. I talk with some administration people, and I've been urging them to give that a higher profile because it really needs it. It's not merely, as you correctly pointed out, the terrorism aspect, though that, of course, is the #1 concern, but it is the massive cost and the burdens that it is imposing on small communities. I could go on about that one for hours.
Yeah. Jim, we are out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And more importantly, thank you so much for everything that you do in terms of getting the truth out there about the threat we face.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you. And viewers of the Glazov Gang, you got to get The Red Green Access by Jim Simpson. A must read. Get it. Tell your friends all about it. Please don't forget we're a fan-generated program. If you like what we do, go to jamieglazov.com to support the show. And make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel of the Glazov Gang. Good night.